Welcome to the Coping Podcast, where we share strategies for coping with the stressors of life, especially the difficulties of parenting. And here is your host, Dr. Lee Weiss.
This is Dr. Lee Weiss. I am the host of the Coping Podcast, where I feature top experts on topics like raising healthy children, parenting, and so much more. Past guests include Dr. Ellie Leibovitz, neuropsychologist Dr. Lisa Novak, Dr. Doug Bolton, and many more. Just a quick disclaimer, the information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not intended to provide mental health treatment and does not constitute a client-therapist relationship. The information provided is not a replacement for being assessed and evaluated by a licensed professional and is not intended to replace mental health or medical advice. This episode is brought to you by Coping Partners. Coping Partners is a mental health practice in the Chicago suburbs dedicated to helping children, adolescents, and adults. We help manage various challenges, including anxiety, divorce, behavioral issues, relationship problems, and much more. Check out more episodes of our podcast and our website at copingpartners.com, and you can contact us with any questions you have. Before we get into today's topic, I wanted to introduce our guest, who I have had the pleasure of knowing since high school, where we did shows and swing choir together. And fun fact, not only is Dr. Faust an amazingly talented principal, but she has an amazing voice. Marcie Faust is an elementary school principal and educational leader dedicated to creating learning environments where students feel empowered, supported, and prepared for the future. With experience as an early childhood program director, director of innovative learning, classroom teacher, and technology coach, Marcie brings a unique blend of instructional expertise and forward-thinking vision to her work. She is passionate about designing authentic, connected learning experiences and fostering school cultures grounded in fairness, student voice, and meaningful relationships. Marcie is committed to helping students and staff navigate challenges with confidence, curiosity, and care, preparing all learners for success in an ever-changing world. And we're very lucky she is the principal of South Park Elementary, which is local to us in Deerfield. So thank you so much. After that long beginning, thank you, Dr. Faust, for being here and sharing your expertise as a school leader.
Thank you for inviting me to join you.
Absolutely.
Excited for our conversation today.
Absolutely. So we met for coffee and we talked a little bit about Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. And I was hoping to talk to you a little bit more today from your lens as a school leader. So can you tell us a little bit about how you work with parents in your elementary school to foster their children's independence more within the school context?
Sure. So The Anxious Generation was a very eye-opening book for me. And actually, I really was wearing my parent hat when I was reading that book, even more than my school leader hat. I, at the time, had a teenage daughter who was really struggling with anxiety and very tethered to her smartphone and social media. And I started to really tune into what some of her challenges were, recognizing that we were coming out of COVID. And so it's hard to know what role every variable plays. And then I started paying attention to what I was seeing in our schools. And I noticed that students were dealing with emotion dysregulation at higher and higher rates. And it looks like kids who become very emotional and have a hard time kind of taking control of their emotions, a lot of tearfulness. We see heightened anxiety, kids with lots of worries. And we do a survey twice a year in my organization in Deerfield, where we ask kids to do a self-rating on some aspects of their social emotional learning. And historically in Deerfield, grit was always a very low area for us. But for the first time ever, emotion regulation came even lower than grit. So I was paying attention to this idea of like grit and perseverance and emotion regulation, and we're really struggling with that. And what can I do to support the families and the teachers? And a little bit of a book study with Jonathan Haidt's book and bringing in some local professionals such as like you're in your type of role. We did some panels where we had parents listening to some of that, the clinical lens, paired with the school lens to try to talk about some strategies that parents could be using at home to support their children. And I always say, like, this school will do so much, but we can't do it alone.
Right.
Right. And that it's such a crazy statistic. It's something like from the time a child is born until they reach age 18, they're only in school like 13% of their life. And we have this belief that they're here with the teachers and in the school for so many more hours. And over the course of their life, they really are. And so when we talk about partnership, we really mean that it takes both of these groups together. Mm-hmm. And what we're finding is it's just become harder and harder to be a parent. And there's no real blueprint on that or manual. And so how can we give parents tools and strategies? And so it's really been, reaching out to people like you, honestly, to bring those voices in and helping parents see that sometimes connecting outside of school to give their child a little bit more support, in addition to what we're doing, is what makes a difference for a lot of kids today.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying about the partnership, because we say that on a first session with everyone, that we're with your child for 50 minutes a week, typically. Yeah. And so it's much more important that we can kind of have parents also partner with us and do the things that we're talking about, recognizing how hard it is, because we're both parents, to do all this work that we're asked to do, especially with technology and so forth and busy lives. But I love that you're taking, again, the school lens and saying we need to partner with parents also in order to see the results with our children. And emotional regulation is probably our number one call in terms of presenting issues. So I see that too. Tell us a little bit, you were kind of describing to me the pause model. Can you tell us?
Yeah. So, I think around this time last year, I also started thinking about if I could give parents just a few key pieces of advice, things that I've learned. And I always say, I've made so many mistakes. I'm not a perfect parent, but what are the things that I would want parents to know? And the first thing that I say is that it's key to learn how to sit in our child's discomfort. And Deerfield, we call that just a pause, like just take a pause, take a beat. Some examples that I like to give parents are things like your child comes home from school and they had the worst day ever, and they are insistent that they got beat up at recess. This does happen to me quite frequently. And what I'll say to parents is, I know your instinct is to rush and contact the school and find out exactly what happened. But I ask people to take a moment and try a few things. Like, can you sit with your child and have them express kind of their negative feelings and just validate them? Sounds like it really was a hard recess. Mm-hmm. Who did you go to for help? Asking some probing questions. Who'd you go to for help? Oh, you didn't go to a recess supervisor? Oh, but you talked to your teacher. Great. Did you go see the nurse? Oh, you didn't see the nurse? Like these kinds of things. If you didn't see the nurse, probably not very hurt. Also, if you were very hurt, the nurse probably would have called, so taking a step back and really just sitting in it. And then your child still might be really upset about recess. And it's kind of like, that stinks. You know what? I hope tomorrow's a better recess. Maybe there's somebody new you can play with. Let's go get a snack. And it's then, a little bit of distraction or redirection, rather than shoot that email off to the school insisting that a full investigation take place. We've robbed our child of a few things, letting them deal with that discomfort because that's their reality. When we live, we have to have feelings of discomfort, displeasure. Mm-hmm. When we as the adult jump in to save the day, we've robbed them the opportunity to do some of their own problem solving. And we want to do some coaching in that moment. Could you go back to school tomorrow and try XYZ, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we've tried to really instill that idea with our community and saying, just take a minute and see if there's an opportunity there for just sitting together and maybe some coaching behind the scenes. That's kind of where that came from.
I love that. And in that example, again, in their mind, because, your experience is always subjective. In that child's mind, they were beat up, which, may not have been black and blue marks, but they might have been shoved or they might have been, teased or whatnot, but you're taking their upset level from a 10, let's say, to a 7, in just sitting there, staying calm and regulated yourself as the parent, asking some strengths-based questions. Those were great questions, like, oh, did you ask this person for help? Like, that was great if you did, right? Helping to make them realize they have more resilience than they might have felt in that moment. They were stronger than they, more capable of handling that situation than they thought.
Yes. And I've also told parents this, rather than take the time it probably took you to draft that email, that's great time to just spend with your child, just the connection. And so, I've had to, and I've had to coach, I've learned this. I've been doing this work a long, long time. I don't get as emotional in myself when I receive a really disappointed or upset email from a family, but my younger staff, I've had to coach them and say, like, remember, everybody has the best of intentions. Everybody cares so deeply about kids. When kids come home upset, it is very natural for parents to absorb the emotion and want to do something with it. Yeah. And so I understand all those things. And I think we're all trying to work together to, model for kids, treat each other with kindness, because this is an emotional type of role that we're all in. Parenting, teaching, school leading, counseling, it all is highly emotional because we all just care so much.
Absolutely. But what a great message that everyone can pause and everyone can take a beat. Yeah. And it's helpful for us as adults to regulate, but it also filters down then to the kids.
Right. Yeah. And, I have the advantage of having older children. So now mine are teens, all teens at this point. And it evolves from coming home and telling your sob story from recess to the text message, right? And I've told parents of older kids, sometimes, it can be your child like, I'm having the worst day. I need you to come pick me up. That's happened to me many times. And often my reaction to them will be like, go find an adult to help you.
Awesome. No, that's
hard. I love you. And then I'm done. I'm out and I'm not responding. But that back and forth, I know can hide things. And, in schools, we do sometimes get parents who show up and they're like, my child doesn't feel well. I'm coming to get them. Oh, well, no one at school knew. And again, I'm always looking to the future. Like, what are we trying to prepare kids for? You are not going to be the only person available to solve every problem. And I don't want kids to grow up thinking mom and dad are the only people there for them. There's amazing adults here in the school who are here to help you, right?
The practice of saying to a nurse or to a teacher, I don't feel well. I need to go call my mom to go home, right? Even just that piece of communication is missing. The text hits on dad's cell phone and calm without having to articulate that or communicate that.
So that has improved. I'm really proud of our parents. I feel like they really are working hard at this. Yeah. And hearing some of these messages and really, working to support our goals for the.
Well, and just the way you speak is, it's obvious that you get it from a parent lens. You're so empathic and non-judgmental because, again, the parent experience is different, right, than the school's experience, but you're trying to hold that while coaching them, all in the service of helping these kids to develop grit, resilience, emotional regulation, all the things that we all want for our kids, for sure. What are some examples of simple responsibilities or simple tasks that you wish more children came to school able to do on their own? Because I do think a lot of us are over functioning, myself included, in the day-to-day tasks.
I know. Well, I think it can be small things. Like I'm like staring at the front office, but my door to my office opens to the front office of our school. And I see so many parents dropping off like library books is a great example. And it's surprising. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if the library books are delivered a day or two late by the child, right? And I want to say, mom and dad, you don't have to take that on. And I think that when kids feel that disappointment, like, oh, I can't check out a new book today because I didn't bring them back, that's the intervention. That's the learning experience.
Right. That's the worst thing that happens.
And I would say, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And so many times where parents just come to drop things off, I think save yourself the trip. Other than maybe food, and we still have some food for kids. Water bottles, we have cups.
Right. Absolutely.
Library books can come late. You know what I mean?
Sure.
lots of things like that where I wish parents would just let their child know that their child is going to be fine. We've got them, and that the next day they can bring whatever it was, and it can just be a great conversation at home. I think those are
experience.
Those are like really simple ones.
Right.
And I think the ones that I described earlier to you, I really wish I saw more of. Instead of reaching out to the school immediately, I wish the conversation was more frequent, where it was, tell me what happened when your child is upset or frustrated. What can you try tomorrow? You know, let them try the next day when they come home. Did you do it? You know, try out a little bit of that coaching behind the scenes before we're always reaching out on behalf of the child. We're doing so much problem solving for them. And I think that that's one of the big reasons we're not seeing that resilience, because there's no opportunity to practice that. Right.
And to fail in a way that's like, you know, okay, exactly. It's not the end of the world if they fail. And like you said, they forget their library book, you know, we're not, but as they get older, the stakes do get bigger. And parents aren't there in the same way to kind of catch them. And so you're right. It's like we're robbing them of these experiences.
Right. Those are some that I definitely see frequently and would love to see people practicing a bit more. Another one is peer conflict. Okay.
To say for sure.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. It doesn't matter gender of child, like, you know, boys and girls, they all struggle with peer conflict and the dynamic. And I don't know what you would say, Dr. Weiss, but I actually tell parents not to get very involved. I notice from my perspective, when we try to get involved and we try to fix the problem between peers, it doesn't usually, at least from the outsider, like mom to mom, it doesn't really help. It often really like tarnishes the relationship between the parents. And so I've started with my own, especially I've got two daughters. When I have somebody reaching out about something, I'll say, you know, I'm going to let, you know, my daughter's Julia, I'm going to let Julia work this out on her own. And I've had parents like kind of push back a little, but it's just like my value is I want my child to be a wonderful, caring friend. She's going to make some mistakes, but if I get involved for her, I feel like it's hard to step aside or step back and not be defensive when somebody tells you something negative about your child. And so what I have tried to coach other parents to do is just say, you know, I'm sorry that's going on. I'm going to talk to my child. I really want our girls or these kids to try to work this out on their own.
Right. No, I agree, unless it's a safety, truly like a safe issue, or something really serious. But no, I totally agree. Again, the more that they can problem solve themselves, the better. I do appreciate what you said though about the non-defensive response as a parent. Like, I'm so sorry that's happening, because you're wanting to be empathic to whatever this other mom is experiencing with her daughter.
Right.
And like you say, like, and I'm happy to talk to her, but let's let them, you know, and let them kind of work it out. It's still showing compassion and caring, but ultimately like modeling, they're old enough to figure this out. You know, when preschool and they're having a play date, it's different. Like they grab a toy from each other and you're like, hey, that's not nice. Let's share it. Right. It's a different phase. But as they get older, we do expect them to figure out more and more how to problem solve. Absolutely.
And I do get a lot of parents who are like, I reached out to the parent and now it's just worse. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. That's usually actually not successful. And maybe it was back in the day, like maybe back in the 70s and 80s but I don't know the issues were what they were today. But no, I always say it's probably best to just, you know, validate that other person's experience and then talk to your child and see if they can work it out on their own.
Absolutely.
More and more of that.
We're seeing a lot of anxiety in our practice. I'm curious about school interventions that you've seen to be successful when kids are maybe struggling with drop off or, you know, anxiety around maybe a spelling test, something in the school setting, and kind of, again, what parents can do and what schools do to help with these anxious kiddos.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, there's so much of it. Our teachers are amazing at being really just supportive of every individual child's experience. You know, anxiety looks so different from child to child. And when it comes to school refusal, we get very creative. Sometimes it's just creating a plan where there's somebody for a child to check in with. And it's maybe it's like a time limited point of contact. We're going to give you 5 minutes to do a calming activity, and then we're going to walk you back to class, and your teacher's going to be there to welcome you. Those types of plans tend to work, not overnight, but they do. So interventions like that. And I would say if a child is experiencing school refusal, first talk to the teacher so the teacher's aware. And then, maybe somebody else at the school can help develop a plan like I'm describing to help with that. Things like test taking anxiety. I think a lot of teachers do some grounding activities before they even assess kids, reminding them that, this matters because I need to see how you're doing so I can teach you the best that I can. So it's not so much pressure on the child. We do as much as we can do. We bring in our social workers sometimes to do some co-teaching, to come, practice some strategies with the class. But really, if the issue is too much, that's where sometimes that partnership of trying something outside with maybe an outside provider paired with what we're trying here at school can help kind of like move the needle for a child.
And can you give us an example of, again, from a parenting perspective, like what a parent might do that has helped in cases where kids are struggling with anxiety? And maybe, again, a situation where a parent has done something that, of course, intentions being good, didn't really help, or maybe even made it worse.
I've seen parents really do an amazing job trusting the school. So, a child with like school refusal does an awesome job of like getting their child to the door. And then I'll say, or my assistant principal or social worker, we've got them. And they'll do an amazing job saying like, I love you. They've got you. I have to go to work, and they leave. Yeah. And I'm always like, thank you. Because first of all, a lot of it's for your benefit, mom and dad. Right. And that's how you're on. Gosh, it's like a minute or two and they are great. There's other times where the parent
I want to pause really quickly. What you're describing is the parent giving a vote of confidence in the school in front of their child. And I just think that's important to kind of like, right? Because if a parent's like, oh, sweetie, I know you're really nervous. Oh, call me if you need anything. Hopefully it'll be fine. Right. The message conveyed is very different. And the kiddo's like, ooh, I don't know if I can cope. But what you described, your role play of the parent who successfully did the handoff is, you got this, school's got you, it'll be great, bye, which is a very different message.
Yeah. Yes. So hard to do. I'll like lock eyes with parents. I'm like, we've got them. Please trust us. It's so hard though, because when the child is so emotional and the parents become emotional, I'm like, I just want to take them and help both parties. Right. Oh, so hard. I'm trying to think. So some examples of not helping is usually just like becoming overly involved. So that might be like some of the examples I told you, like responding to the text messages on the watches. Yeah. And so you're feeding that anxiety as opposed to just letting them ask for help at school, coming to the school and picking up when the child is having a hard time, writing the teacher an email at midnight that we're so stressed out about this test and we're not coming to school tomorrow because, it's just too much. And I'm like, oh, I'm so worried about that because from our perspective, now we've created a bigger problem. And the more we let kids stay home or, like avoid what's inevitable, it gets so much harder to get back into the rhythm of school and kind of pushing through.
100%. We had a speaker talk to our practice on school refusal, like the whole hour on school refusal. And she had an interesting stance, which was very forceful, but actually, kind of brilliant. And she said, school, if your kid isn't sick, doesn't have a fever, isn't vomiting, or diarrhea, I think those were her 3 exemptions, like significant, right? And you have to like witness it and see this.
Yeah.
and you let your kids stay home from school, she said, we treat that like an emergency situation. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. And she said, it so quickly can escalate, and become a thing where then they don't think they can handle going to school. They're relieved that they get to avoid that, whatever the thing is they're stressed about. And it just becomes this vicious cycle. So she said, like, people really need to be careful, parents, about kids just saying, you know what, I just can't go because something's happening at lunch or something's happening with the test today. And like you said, the goal is to get them to school. And if there's interventions or accommodations happening at school, that's okay, but get them there. That really spoke to me.
Let's just get them there. I don't know if this relates, but I every morning at my school, I do a morning announcement, just like this, just like a Zoom show with the kids. And so it's like I get to speak to every student, even though they're not physically seeing me. And I actually just did this reminder yesterday because school refusal is obviously heightened after a long break, right? So after Thanksgiving, after winter break, after a child was absent for a week with strep or flu. Coming back, right? And so I always tell my students this, and I use it with my own kids, but I feel like it's a nugget that works because somebody just said, oh, the middle schoolers still talk about that, Dr. Faust. I say, if you're having a hard morning at home, try these 3 things. We do them in my house, and it's wear something cozy, eat something delicious, and pick something that you can look forward to at the end of the day. And then I reiterate that, like, when a child comes in and they're upset, I'm like, did you eat something delicious this morning? Yeah, I had hot cocoa. Great. Oh, and you're wearing your favorite cozy sweatpants. What are you looking forward to at the end of the day? And it's like, my dance class. I can't wait to hear how your dance class goes. Let's go. And I am telling you, I know it doesn't work for everybody, but those types of little tips, reminders, things that can become common language at home, they really do help.
So sweet. And you're changing the mindset to a positive, what you're looking forward to, not what you're anxious about. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So we just did that yesterday because, man, after Thanksgiving, it's tough.
Yeah. Okay. So I also wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience with smartphones and smartwatches in the elementary school setting. I don't know how prevalent they are in your school. Maybe you can start with that and then kind of what you're seeing and what your concerns are or what parents should be aware of.
Yeah, we did an evening where we had a book talk about the anxious generation. And through that, a lot of parents started to band together and say, wait, can we do this together? Can we hold off on buying phones for our kids? And that was so exciting because that's how it works, right? It's this community effort. It might not be the wait till 8, but at least it's something. So I definitely feel like kids are getting phones a little bit later than they had been. I used to see them across the board starting in 4th grade and 5th, of course. And the kids were like hiding their phones in the bathroom. It's definitely improved, but I also think it's because we're talking so much about it, right? So, I think at our school, the way that we handle it is phones should be out of sight and never be heard until they're outside of the school building. If we see them, everybody gets a single warning. We document it. And if it happens again, it gets brought to the office and parents have to come physically and pick it up, which is kind of a disruption to your day.
Yeah.
I've had that happen like once. So It's working. And then with the smartwatches, that's trickier because we're seeing those from much younger ages all the way up. We've just been very clear. They cannot be a distraction during the learning environment or to the learning environment. So if it becomes distracting, we've told parents, like, the teacher may ask the child to take it off and put it in their backpack. I don't necessarily bring it down to the office because I know that it's a little bit of a different circumstance. And really the coaching of parents, I do not want parents initiating texting through the watch, especially for things like transportation plans at the end of the day. Oh my gosh, talk about spiking the anxiety where it's like, wait, I thought I was taking the bus home. Wait, now what's happening? So we always say, parents, please do not initiate any communication on the phone during school hours. If you have a message, I promise the office will get it to your child. And if the child initiates the text message to you through the watch, don't respond or give them an emoji and that's it.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And it's really improved, I have to say.
And at recess, at lunch, are they also like forbidden from
Forbidden.
That's
Forbidden. And I have to tell you, it's not something we are seeing here. I think it's a combination of just bringing it to everybody's attention. The phones are in the backpacks in the lockers. They're not outside at recess. That's different at the middle school, I think, but for us here,
it's such a blessing, and it's not a coincidence. I'm sure you have done a really good job of communicating the importance of this to the teachers, to the parents, to the kids themselves, so that they're getting this message. It is not okay to like be texting your friends at recess, because it breaks my heart, honestly, when you see these kids. Sometimes we'll do school observations and we'll go to lunch and recess on purpose to see like, what are they like? What are the kids like in an unstructured setting with peers versus what are they like in math? And it's just sad. They're not going to learn how to, have facial expressions and body language. They don't learn how to communicate if it's all like this. And so they do enough of that, I feel like, in middle school and high school when they're on their own, but it's school to have some practice of actually playing games at recess, or doing like playing catch or kickball or whatever they're doing, Foursquare. It's huge. So I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. What other examples can you give us of things that, again, you really want parents to know? Oh, and you were going to show me the plot.
Oh, yeah. So this, our organization actually handed out magnets at the beginning of the school year to try to encourage everybody to lean into this message of, power of the pause, right? And so, don't rush in, ask questions, don't answer all the questions for them, praise the push, model the muddle. It all came from that same idea that I was starting to practice last year, which is, let them be.
Yes.
Just let them be, let them sit in that discomfort, join them, help co-regulate, but you don't need to jump in and solve all the problems. And I've heard so many parents say to me, I heard what you said. I practiced pausing. I mean, you're really hearing parents using the language, trying to resist reaching out.
It is for everybody, because this it in action, how it helps. Again, taking them from a 10 to a 7 or a 10 to a 6, it helps.
Yeah, it really does. So that was a great tool. We try to give tools, whether it's a bookmark, a magnet, something visible for you to see and remember, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. I don't have to rush in, or I don't have to, solve this problem, or we joke like ride the emotional roller coaster. Like we can just wave as the child, passes us by. So all those little tips, and I have to practice too all the time.
It's not always easy, but another psychologist once said to me something like her motto was to care less. And I went, what? And she said, no, of course you care. As a parent, of course you're concerned, but don't be like in it with them, like you said, on the roller coaster, kind of like have a little bit of a boundary where you go, okay, I know it's hard, sweetie. You can be empathic, but not really enter into the crisis where then you go the teacher and swooping in, because you're so in it. You're able to go like, okay, I can be the calm force for you to co-regulate, because kids still, especially elementary school kids, still need that, to give them a hug, to say, I know it was a hard day, honey, but not like you said to like get, oh, she did that. How could you do that? Oh my gosh, the teacher said what, and then you sort of get, right. You're no longer able to help your child to regulate.
Right.
I love it. Any other examples before kind of like wrap up for the day? Anything else that you wish parents would know?
I guess you've probably talked about this in the past, but one of my favorite resources, honestly, is Dr. Becky Kennedy's book, Good Insides. I felt like that was a life-changing read for me when I read it when my kids were probably like 17, 15, and like 11. And I still was like, this is groundbreaking. It's so simple, so actionable. And then I brought it to my staff and I said, I know it's about parenting, but it can be about teaching too. And so we've really tried to use a lot of her ideas and interventions. So like borrowing the calm. I always say to the teachers, either swap out and bring somebody else in, or just breathe with the child. And so we've been practicing so much of that. And Dr. Becky Kennedy's idea of like all kids are good inside. I feel like I do some reminding of parents, not about your kid, but about that other kid.
Right. Where they're having the conflict. Absolutely.
Right. Or like they're having a hard time. And I know that was disruptive to the classroom environment, but instead of reaching out and complaining to us about how horrible that was, could you try saying to your child, like, sounds like so-and-so is having a really hard day. I'm sorry to hear that.
Right. Teaching empathy too.
Yes, teaching the empathy. So yeah, when that book came, and I probably was late to the game, honestly, but
Are you talking about Good Inside, a guide
Good Inside?
the parent you want to be?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a phenomenal book. I just wanted to make sure because she has so much podcasts. She has all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
But I agree.
I loved her book. Yes, I loved her book, Good Inside. And I've tried to show little clips of some of her podcasts and videos. But one of my favorite things that she's talked about is imagine your child sitting on a bench, right? And, having this really, really difficult moment. Like one day they're going to have to sit on the bench alone. But for now, you can come and sit on the bench with them and helping them tolerate their distress teaches them one day they can do that without you. And I thought there's so many examples of that. And if we could just practice that a little bit more, and I do it too. I will say to myself, like, you don't have to fix this. You just have to sit here. Don't do anything, Marcie. Just
Kids don't want you to fix it. They actually sometimes say when parents rush to problem solve, stop it. I just want you to hear me. I just want you to listen, and what they mean is just sit with me on the bench in whatever feeling state you're in. Don't rush to problem solve because often they'll reject the advice anyway. They're not ready for that actionable step. They're ready for just someone to understand and validate and be there with them to help them calm. And then they probably will be able to figure out what's next, if anything. Sometimes there's nothing needed. Yeah. Oh, that's a great resource. Anything else in terms of resources for further reading, whether it's podcasts or books, anything else that you'd like to share?
The other thing that we're trying at my school, and I don't think you need to, it's helpful when the school launches it, but it's called the Let Grow experience. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so we've been doing this at my school for almost a year, and it's been so powerful. I remember hearing about it so long ago, before even the pandemic, and trying it out with my own kids.
Way ahead of the game. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's different when the school says, here, we're going to do this together, and then you're going to be able to show your projects to us. But I remember letting my 5-year-old, I think, ride around the neighborhood unsupervised. And my husband looked at me like I had 3 heads. And he was like, you're going to let her ride around the neighborhood? We don't know where she is.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but can I ask you a question? Were you able to ride around the neighborhood when you were her age alone? And he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, I think that's the point. Like, let's just see what happens. And she came back and she felt so proud. And I remember it was such a really important experience for her and for us as parents. So now getting to lead it from the school, and it's, again, a partnership. I've said it only works when parents are invested in it. It's not something the school can really do. We can just introduce the idea and support it. But if you're interested in that, you can just, Google the Let Grow experience or Let Grow project. Lenore Skenazy has amazing YouTube music TED Talk that I love.
Yeah.
So good. And we want kids to be as independent as possible. And I always say that to parents, like, especially, and I now have one in college and she has to do everything herself. So the earlier we practice that, the better.
Yes. Yeah, they'll have to do it eventually. And the feeling you described as a parent and how your 5-year-old came back so proud. I mean, when they scramble eggs for the first time, do a little one, you're like, there's going to be mistakes, right? Yeah. But the idea that they can do things more independently is very exciting to them. Bicycling is back in the community. Like kids are actually, even on the smartwatches, being like, let's go here and come back and pick each other up. And it's such a beautiful thing. But you're right. You have to band together as parents and be like, let's do this together. It's good for them to explore and to be able to do it a little more unsupervised.
Absolutely. So I have a group of parents who are just telling me they really push each other, like let them grow. And I say anything your child can do on their own, let them. So whether that be ordering at a restaurant, even I had my daughter call to follow up about her eyeglasses. She was like, when are they going to be in? When are they going to be in every day? I said, you know what? Call and ask them how much longer,
Great.
and now she just does it. She's like so eager to get them. And kids will learn those skills if we give them the opportunity to experience them. It will get more comfortable for them to do some of those scary things alone. So yeah. And then it's less on you, mom and dad, and
Well,
a little less.
I'm so thrilled that the school and the community has you as their leader, because I can just, again, tell from everything that you are so supportive of children growing and becoming more resilient, having more grit, becoming more regulated human beings. And you're helping, again, partner with parents and professionals and teachers to all be on the same page. And again, they're just so lucky to have you as a leader.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. I mean it. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for including me. And I'm excited again to support everybody and to see kind of where we go as we all work together to support the kids around us.
Absolutely. Everyone, check out more episodes of our podcast. Go to copingpartners.com and click on podcast and articles. And thank you, as always, for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the Coping Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes. And check out our podcast page at copingpartners.com.